Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya.
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Sarasatim Vyasam.
Devim Sarasatim Vyasam.
Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Tato Jayam Udiraye.
Sachidananda, Srimad Bhāgavatam, volume, we're reading this morning, please. We're reading from Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 7, Chapter 9, which includes prayers of Prahlāda Maharaj, prayers of Prahlāda Maharaj to Lord Nrsimhadev. They take place after Lord Nrsimhadev has eviscerated Hiranyakashipu, and even after killing the demon Hiranyakashipu, Lord Nrsimhadev is extremely angry. All the demigods have come forward in chapter 8 and offered their prayers to appease the Lord, to express their gratitude, but still he's not satisfied. And then Lord Brahma, as the leader of the Devas, has pushed forward Prahlāda Maharaj. They could understand that Lord Nrsimhadev came to protect his pure devotee. Prahlāda is a 5-year-old child, and he came forward on the behest of Brahma and the other demigods, as Prabhupada describes the scenario. I'm okay with that.
You're okay with that?
The noises. And in this chapter 9, he approaches Lord Nrsimhadev, and before he speaks, it's described by Shukadeva Goswami, Astau sit dharamekagra manasastu samahita prema gadgarayavacha sanyasta hridayekshana. That Prahlāda Maharaj's devotion was so strong that Astau sit dharamekagra. Ekagra means he was one-minded in beholding Lord Nrsimhadev. Manasa susamahita, that his mind was completely fixed in devotion on him. And prema gadgaraya vacha. Gadgara is a onomatopoeic expression in Sanskrit, which means that gadgara means that you're stammering. And why is Prahlāda stammering? Out of prema. Prema gadgaraya vacha. His words are not perfectly aligned because it's hard for him to speak out of a sense of love for Lord Nrsimhadev. Nyasta hridayekshana. Nyasta means where you place something. Nyasta hridayekshana. And what is he placing? He's placing hridaya, his heart, and his aikshata, his vision. His heart and his vision is completely fixed on Lord Nrsimhadev as he's about to offer prayers. And then he begins, Sri Prahlāda Uvacha, Ramadayo Suragana Munayota Siddha Satvai Katana Gatayo Vachasam Bravahe Narayitum Purugana Arunati Pitrukim Toshnam Arhati Same Hare Ugrajate. He starts with remarking about how Brahma Adayo. Brahma means Lord Brahma, and Adayo means etc. And everybody else on down, from Brahma down to all the other demigods. Brahmadayo Suraguna, as well as the Suras, all the saintly people, Gana, the groups of them. Suragana Munayota Siddha, all the Siddhas, the perfected beings. And then again, if you can look back in chapter 8, you'll find that all the categories of beings in the universe who are afflicted by the appearance of Hiranyakashipu have offered prayers of gratitude to the Lord. To Siddha, Satvai Katana Gatayo Vachasam Pravahe. And they've spoken perfect prayers in perfect Sanskrit, and they came out in streams. naraditum puruganar aranati pitru kintoshtam arhati samehara ugrajate. But still the Lord was not satisfied. So then Prahlād gives more commentary on this by saying, Manye dana bijana rupa tapasu taujas tejas tapas alapavasya buddhi yoga naradhanaihi pravanti so bhaktyatu tosha bhagavan vajayutapas. Says, therefore, I think that the qualities like strength or beauty or high learning, intelligence, a beautiful body, wealth, he's naming them on. Manye means I think. Manye dana bija rupa tapasu taujas teja. Teja means like you're effulgent. Teja. Naradhanai gavanti pagas. He said, I don't think any of these are of great concern to the Lord. In other words, he doesn't consider them to be very attractive in any living being, because after all, they come from him. Any opulence we may have in this world is actually some borrowed, as Prabhupada uses the term, borrowed plumes from the Lord. But then he concludes, Bhaktyātu tosha bhagavan gajayutapaya. But he remembers, does Prahlād, Gajendra. And Gajendra was an elephant. As Prabhupada says, he may have been a big fatty animal. And he was the king of all the animals in the forest. When he walked, he would crackle the underbrush, and he felt powerful, and everyone would get out of his way. But then when he was captured by the crocodile, he felt some devotion that came from his last life, offering prayers. And even in that helpless condition, and even as an elephant, how can an elephant articulate very well? He offered his heartfelt prayers. Tosha. Tutosha means just by his little bit of bhakti he showed in that time of emergency that he pleased the Lord. The Lord was satisfied with him. Bhaktyātu tosha bhagavan. Gajayutapaya, he was the king of the elephants. So he remembered him. And then Prahlād contrasted with others who may be highly learned. Viprad, Vishad, Gunayutara, Vindanada, Padada, Vinda, Mukashva, Chandra, Manyeta arpita mano vachaneti karta pranam punapis takulanda tuburimana. He then gives this opinion that's very important, because sometimes people think in some religious system they know all the verses, or they're anointed as a priest, as a high priest, a priestess of the organization, and they have some special angle. But Prahlād says, I don't think this is the Lord considers this very well either. Says viprad vishad gunayatara navindanabha. That he said that if somebody's got a high position like a brahmana and has all the brahminical qualifications as mentioned in the Shastra, the book Sanat Sujata, but that person doesn't have any devotion to the Lord, he says that person can't purify even himself. But a dog eater, a shwapacha, somebody who comes from a family where on holidays they cook dogs, because that's their shwapacha. They got a big pot where they cook, little Fido goes in the pot, and they cook the dog to eat it. That's the lowness of the consciousness of their culture. But if that person somehow gets association and develops a sense of bhakti to the Lord, he says that person can purify not only himself, but his whole family and others as well. That's how powerful he's saying a little bit of bhakti is. And then he says that the Lord's complete in himself. He doesn't need naivatmana prabharinam nijalabhapurno. He's complete in himself. He doesn't need anything from us. Manam janada vidusha karanodranite. Yet yajjane bhagavati vadhita kāmān sachatmane pradukasya yatamakashi. But he says that if we offer something to the Lord, then it's our benefit. He doesn't need it. He's purna, always complete in himself, and no need to receive anything. But he's always willing to receive, because he's bhoktaram yagatapasam. He's the one person who can take everything we offer. Not everyone can. Not many people can. We give something and they don't know what to do with it, or they don't appreciate it. But the Lord appreciates whatever we give. Not only that, He can accept it and digest it, and He knows how to give it back. That's how the Bhagavad Gita says, Jagnar tat kamano nyatra loko yam karma bandhana tadartam karma konteya mukta sangha samachara. If you know this secret from this verse, that if you know that you become complete by offering to the complete whole, that's our karma. We're servants of the Supreme Lord. So he gives an example. That's Prahlāda. Just like when you decorate your face, you're going to look in the mirror probably, right? I know a few people don't look. You just slather it on, which is okay too. But if you look in the mirror when you're decorating your face, then you'll see that the reflection is also decorated. That's what he's saying. So the analogy is that we're extensions of the Lord, like reflections almost. And that when we decorate the Lord, when we give to the Lord, then we become decorated. And so he said, this is the secret to life. So this is Prahlāda's opening statements as he begins to speak, and then he concludes, Tasmad vikata viklaka ishvarasya sarvatmana mahikarami yatamanisha nicho jaya gunasar anupravishta puyete yena hikuman anuvarnitena. Tasmad means therefore, conclusion. Therefore, even though I'm from a low family, I am an insignificant lower than insignificant. My father is the great demon Hiranyakashipu. Even though I'm from such a low background, my DNA is really bad. Still, because I know if I offer sincere prayers to the Lord, then He'll accept them. And he said that goes for anyone, anywhere. If you're sincere, no matter where you're starting from, whatever situation you're in, if you offer prayers to the Lord then with sincere intention, then He'll accept it. It's the essence. And he goes on to his other prayers. And today we'll look at, where were we? Oh, here we are. We'll look at text 27, so it's 7:9:27. Om Jnana Timadam Nasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swarantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Sri Yuta Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahavana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvatutam Pūtanā Sahitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Balaram Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakadvitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tata Kamshana Godangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Nitai Namine She Namirhate Sharamuni Namti Te Chere Nitai Namine She Namirhate Sharamuni Namti Te Chere Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Naisha paravara matir bhavato nanu syaj jantora yatapa surido jagatas tatati samsevaya surataror ibate prasada sevanu rupam udayuna paravaratam. So, the translation is, unlike an ordinary living entity, my Lord, you do not discriminate between friends and enemies, the favorable and the unfavorable, because for you there is no conception of higher and lower. Nonetheless, you offer your benedictions according to the level of one's service, exactly as a desire tree delivers fruits according to one's desires, and makes no distinction between the lower and the higher. Srila Prabhupada. In Bhagavad Gita 4.11, the Lord clearly says, Yayata mam prapatyante tam stataeva vajamyaham. As one surrenders to me, I reward him accordingly. As stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Jivera Swarupai Krishnera Nitya Das. Every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna. According to the service the living entity renders, he automatically receives benedictions from Krishna, who does not make distinctions, thinking, here is a person in an intimate relationship with me, and here is a person I dislike. Krishna advises everyone to surrender to him. Sarva-karmasu parityāge ekam saranam vraja. One's relationship with the Supreme Lord is in proportion to that surrender and the service one renders unto the Lord. Thus, throughout the entire world, the higher or lower positions of the living entities are selected by the living entities themselves. If one is inclined to dictate that the Lord grant something, one receives benedictions according to his desires. If one wants to be elevated to the higher planetary systems, the heavenly planets, he can be promoted to the place he desires. And if one wants to remain a hog or a pig on earth, the Lord fulfills that desire also. Therefore, one's position is determined by one's desires. The Lord is not responsible for the higher or lower grades of our existence. This is further explained quite definitely in Bhagavad Gita 9.25 by the Lord himself. Yanti deva vrata devan pitrun yanti pratirvrata bhutani yanti bhutejya yanti mud yajino pimam. Some people want to be promoted to the heavenly planets. Some want to be promoted to Pitriloka. And some want to remain on earth. But if one is interested in returning home, back to Godhead, he can be promoted there also. According to the demands of a particular devotee, he receives a result by the grace of the Lord. The Lord does not discriminate, thinking, here is a person favorable to me, and here is a person who is not favorable. Rather, he fulfills the desires of everyone. Therefore, the Shastras enjoin, Akama sarva-karmasu mokshakama udarati tivrena bhakti-yogena yajeta purusham param. Whether one is without desire, the condition of the devotees, or is desirous of all fruitive results, or is after liberation, one should with all efforts try to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead for complete perfection, culminating in Krishna consciousness. That's from Bhāgavatam 2.3.10. According to one's position, whether as a devotee, a karmi, or a jnani, whatever one wants, one can get if one fully engages in the service of the Lord. We could look at the Lord's pastimes in Vrindavan and elsewhere in Dwarka to see how equitable he is. In fact, one of the main subjects of the prayers of Brahma, when he's...
Sorry, the equipment in your pocket is not on.
So none of that?
It was, but the audio was not enough.
My apologies. Brahma, in his prayers in the 14th chapter of the 10th canto, which are extremely important for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, establishing Govinda, Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he says to the Lord something that's a little amusing. He says, "Do you have any mercy left for the residents of Vrindavan? It seems as if you gave all of it to Pūtanā." Pūtanā was the first demoness that the Lord killed, as we know. Her intentions were dastardly as she came to kill the little baby, but because somehow or other, in contact with Krishna, she had a moment of clarity and purification, she was awarded a kind of liberation that the devotees were astounded by when we talk about Krishna as being the ocean of mercy, especially in Vrindavan. This is one of the topics in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, that especially in Vrindavan, Krishna is so merciful that he liberates everyone who comes in contact with him. She received a relationship with him in the spiritual world, not just impersonal liberation. And when Uddhava speaks to Vidura, he, in a sort of ecstasy, remembers Aho Bhakiyam Stanakala Kutam Jigam Saya Payad Apyasadvi. Apyasadvi means she was asadvi. She wasn't a devotee. She was the opposite. She was a demoness. She wanted to kill him. But even though she had smeared her breast with deadly poison to kill the Lord, somehow or other he considered, well, at least she tried to be my mother. And Prabhupada mentions that the Lord takes the least good qualification and elevates it to the highest position and accepts that, rather than he overlooked the fact that he tried to kill her. And Kambada Yalum Sharanam Vrajema, then Uddhava asked this question, who would take shelter of anyone else other than the Lord? Because as one time in Vrindavan, I was sitting next to Burjan Prabhu for Prasadam at Govardhan Hill, and he said, do you want to hear something about Krishna? And he said, yes, please. And I leaned over and he said, there are two things I want to tell you. He said, one is Krishna's all merciful, but equally as important, he's all powerful. He said if he was all merciful, but he wasn't all powerful, then what could he do with the mercy? Lots of people have a sense of compassion in their heart, but they can't really do anything for us. Whereas, and then he said, if he was all powerful but not all merciful, you'd get some kind of monster who could waylay your progress in all types of ways for no good reason, and you'd be vanquished. But he's both all merciful and all powerful. We hear that, and we heard that in class the other day about Vidunoti. Was it in class the other day? I mentioned Vidunoti because afterwards Mahatma Prabhu said, where did you get this idea of the machine called the Vidunoti? And Chakadola looked it up for me afterwards. There's actually pictures of this machine that's used to clean cotton. You put it, it's like a big bow, it's got a string on it, and then you put the cotton and you vibrate it, and it shakes loose the impurities and it leaves clean cotton. And Krishna's also Vidunoti Suhritsatam. He's the Vidunoti, he actively helps us clean the heart. And Suhritsatam, the different kinds of friends mentioned in the Shastra. Some friends are fair-weathered friends. They're friends until you get in trouble, and then you don't get a return call from them because they know you need help. But Krishna's not like that. He's always there ready, as Gajendra says in his prayers, he's always there ready to respond to any slight call for help or asking for anything from the Lord. He's accommodating. And just like somebody comes over to your house and it's a mess, a good friend will say, oh, I'll stay and help you clean it up. Others will just turn around and flee, or just get out of there as quickly as possible. But Krishna's like that. He stays with us no matter how cluttered we've left our hearts. And he said, I'll help you clean it up if you'd like a little help here. That's a good friend. He's the best friend. And then if we look in the pastimes of Dwarka, astonishingly, Pauṇḍraka had some benediction from Lord Shiva that he could have a verisimilitude of the features of Lord Vishnu. And by really bad association, which were his so-called friends and minions who followed him as a king, they told him, no, not only do you look like Vishnu, you are Vishnu. You are Vasudeva. These other people don't know who you are. Hello.
Sorry.
That's all right. And so Pauṇḍraka had left his city, assuring his citizens that he would sever the head of Vasudeva, and just to prove that he had won the battle, he would toss it back into the center of the city to show his victory. And when he went there, actually he had sent a note to Kṛṣṇa, and in the note it said, I ask you to relinquish your symbols of Vasudeva. He holds a club, wheel, lotus, and did I say disc? No. I said disc, club, lotus, and conch. And of course there's different configurations. In other words, those are the symbols of Vasudeva. So Pauṇḍraka said, I demand that you hand those over to me. And Krishna's response is, I'll hand him over. Maybe not in the way you were hoping. He actually said that. And then he laughed out loud. Everyone thought it was really funny. Krishna's not intimidated by anyone. When Akura went to pick up Kṛṣṇa and Balaram on the order of Kamsa to bring him back, he brought a new chariot. It was an arrangement by Kamsa because he thought it might entice Vidura. This guy got you a new car. You can go in a new car. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says he got him a new chariot by Krishna's arrangement because Kṛṣṇa would never ride in one of Kamsa's cars. So it was properly done. When we got there, he told the whole story to Kṛṣṇa and Balaram that Kamsa had devised a plan through an elephant, through wrestlers. They were going to kill Kṛṣṇa and Balaram there in Mathura. And after hearing the plan, Kṛṣṇa and Balaram laughed out loud, like really enjoyed the laugh. Ah, ha, ha, ha. Never intimidated. So when he heard Pauṇḍraka say, I am Vasudeva, they also thought that was hilarious. They had a good laugh about it. And he went there to meet him on the field of battle, and they exchanged some words. Also, the Pauṇḍraka came out and offered these harsh words, and Kṛṣṇa, so now you've asked for my symbols? Here you go. And he gave him the disc, chopped off his head, but he also engineered it so it flew back into the city and landed there, and all the people came around and said, oh, I wonder whose head that is. But then it became clear that it was Pauṇḍraka. And then Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that Pauṇḍraka was liberated and given a position of sarupya mukti, which means he got the same form as the Lord. Why? Because he was playing around and making the form of Vasudeva. He was so obsessed with Vasudeva, he was thinking of Vasudeva. And even though he was thinking how to usurp his position, Kṛṣṇa said, well, you were thinking of me. This is one of the amazing revelations given by Shukadeva Goswami to Parikshit Maharaj in the Bhāgavatam. When Parikshit asks the question at the beginning of the 7th canto, is it true that the Lord is impartial. As it seems like he favors the demigods. He favors, those are his friends and the demons are his enemies. And then he gives all these examples that actually the Lord's equal to everyone. How the only person who didn't get this kind of special mercy, says Shukadeva Goswami, was Vena. Vena was such a king that he was somehow or other able to completely ignore Krishna and just claim that he was God. He didn't mention Krishna at all and say, he's not God, I'm God. He just said, I'm God, and he ignored Krishna. So he said, only Vena didn't get that kind of mercy because he didn't have any animosity even towards the Lord. He just totally ignored him. So he also points out, or at least Prabhupada points out in his purports, the beginning of the 7th canto, which talks about how the Lord is impartial. He said, just like in a classroom, some students do their homework, right? Some students do their homework, and when you do your homework and you go into the class, it's very interesting because you've already studied the subject. And then if the teacher asks a question, you can raise your hand right away and give the answer because you've already prepared. And other students, they went and played cricket, or I don't know what else you could do besides do your homework, and then they're not interested, don't really know the answer, and then they fall asleep in the class. And so one of them gets, do you have A, B, C, D, E, F here? Yeah? So one of them gets an A, the other one's an F, and then somebody might say, well, the teacher's partial. Why you gave that person an F and this person an A? And said, because the other person was responsive. He or she did their homework and so forth. So the Lord's absolutely and perfectly responsive to everyone. In fact, even his external energy is perfectly responsive. It's called the accommodating potency. If somebody wants to be a hog or a pig and has those proclivities, then the material nature perfectly responds. Shotram, chakshu, sparshanam cha, rasanam granam eva cha, atishtayam manaschayam, vishayan upasevate. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, the material nature, my nature, is accommodating whatever you want. If you want the nose of a pig, so you can smell everything on the ground, and you want the ear of an eagle, or who can hear well? Eagles can hear well, right? They can also see. You want the eye of an eagle, that's more likely. You can see a little mouse from a mile away, or a vulture. They fly at 2 miles in the sky and they can see a dead carcass. If you want that kind of facility, material nature will fulfill your desire. We may not specifically say, I want to be a vulture, but if we develop these types of proclivities, the material nature says, yes, you can have whatever you want. So the Lord, in all circumstances, is responding to our independent desire, and he's fulfilling it. So this verse is so important because it makes us sensitive that we have responsibility. We have responsibility to refine our desires. And if we become responsible, we'll notice and admit that whatever I have now is a result of whatever I've desired previously. But the good news is, as any self-respecting, self-help guru in the world will tell you, it's not about what happens to you, it's about what you do about what happens to you that matters. And therefore, the process of Krishna consciousness is the ultimate self-help, because we take this guiding principle that the ultimate goal of life is to serve Krishna. And then we're given a process through which we can do that. We can be directly in contact with Krishna and serve Krishna, and simultaneously we can become aware of all of those desires that aren't there for serving Krishna, and we can refine them in the association of devotees. And when we have that kind of refinement that Prahlad Maharaj has, because as is mentioned after he offers his prayers, the Lord says, "I'm Bhagavan, I'd like to give you a benediction." He said, "No, no thanks, I don't want anything. I'm not a vanik. I didn't come here for a deal. The deal is, I'm your servant, you're my master, that's it. There is nothing more than that." And the Lord said, "Yeah, but I give benedictions. Take something." And he said, "Please benedict my father," the person who just tried to kill him in every possible way. And he said, "Your father's already given benediction because of his connection to you." And then he said, "Take something for yourself." And he said, "My only request is that within the core of my heart there be no material desires." And so when we have this, then we have everything. Because when we have a sense that we know for ourselves in our own hearts, we can look in and say, "I only want Krishna. I only want to serve Krishna. And this is my motivation for life." Even if we can't properly execute it yet, if we know that that seed is there, we can meditate on that, we can water that seed, and it will grow. And then we're restored. And there's nothing wrong with our original constitutional position. It's actually in some ways better than Krishna's position. Because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we are his appreciators. Even Krishna comes to the point where, like, I think my servitors are getting more than me. That's why he sees Srimati Radharani, it's like, she's enjoying 10 million times more than I am, so I think I'll also become a devotee. And that's Lord Chaitanya. He comes to taste Sri Radhaya Pranaya Mahima Kidrushovana Swadyo Yena Bhuta Madhurima Kidrushova Maria Saukyam Chasya Anubhavata Kidrusho Dilova Tadbhavaja Samajani Shachigarva Sindhu Harindu. This is a dramatic scene in which God comes to take the part of an ordinary living entity as a devotee, and he manifests from the ocean of the womb of Srimati Sachi Devi. To show us the example, also to indicate that there is a realm in the spiritual world where there's unceremonious love. He said, this is not known to the people, anarpitacharim shira. But his main purpose is, he wants to take the position of one appreciating the beauty of himself, of Krishna. So he cheats in that way and takes the position of Srimati Radharani. So how much more we can appreciate our own position. We're eternal servants of Krishna, and when we're able to find that seed that's given to us by association of pure devotees, that the only thing that is important to me ultimately is the sincere desire to serve Krishna with no motivation. Even if even if we're not able to act in that position yet, when we know and recognize that I have that desire seed within my heart, it will grow, and Krishna will reward that. If he rewarded Pūtanā, if he rewarded Pauṇḍraka, and who can even find the desire seed within our heart to serve Krishna, how much more will he reciprocate with somebody who's sincerely trying, even if unable to do it? As is, Krishna gives such encouraging words in Bhāgavatam, like jāta-śraddho mat-kathāsu nirviṇṇaḥ sarva-karmasu veda duḥkhātmakān kāmān parityāge anīśvaraḥ. He said, you may know you don't want any part of the material world, but you're not able to detach from it because of so many past bad habits because of so many present habits you've developed from past association. He said, but don't worry. Keep up, just go on with the process, because that seed of pure devotional service that you have in your heart will fully manifest by my grace. And there's a very encouraging purport in the light of the Bhāgavatam, in which Prabhupada says that once you've recognized that desire in your heart and expressed it even one time, Sakradeva Prapano, yes, that's from the Ramayana, that Bibhishan said, I'm your servitor. And Ramachandra says, anyone who says that, from that day forward, I'm their protector. I'm always there for them. I'll never forget that they said that. And if we were able to come forward in devotional service, serve the Lord in that way, then Prabhupada writes that even if you change your mind, Krishna will, but the devotional service by its own force will drag you to the perfection. So better to inform ourselves, final statement, of the perfection that we already have as living entities, as servants of the Lord, and water that seed as much as possible in all circumstances by being very submissive to the process of devotional service. Don't take anything personally in this world. It's all for our purification. And just depend on the mercy of Krishna. And Prabhupada alludes to that in the purport. He said, the perfectional mentality is sarva-dharman parityāge, mamekam sharanam vraja. Just take shelter of Krishna. You may be confused, you may not know exactly how everything works together, whatever it is, but Prabhupada indicates in his purport, and so it's from Krishna's words, Masuchaha, he said, Prabhupada writes, but such worry is useless. Just surrender to Krishna, and he'll take care of everything. That's real perfection in life, even if we're imperfect. If we have that conviction that if I surrender to Krishna, there is a God and I'm not him. And if I surrender to him, he's perfect and he'll make everything else perfect. That's all you need. And if you start there and you give your heart and soul to that, watering that seed, then everything will manifest in due course of time. Om Tat Sat. Or as they say in Japan, Om Tato Sato. And now, if there's time, there's very little, but we'll take a few reflections. Yes.
Thank you very
Hare
much.
Krishna.
You mentioned this verse, I think it was 2.3.10, Akama sarva-karmasu.
Yes.
And at the end of the purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions that anyone can perform this unmixed bhakti yoga of hearing, chanting, etc., regardless of inner motive. So I always find there's to me there was a paradox there that even if you have some seemingly ulterior motive, you could still perform Shuddha Bhakti or unmixed Bhakti. So I don't understand how those go together, that even though there's some underlying motive for something other than pure Bhakti, still you could perform pure Bhakti. Could you please help?
Well, there's a way in which we can actually distinguish within ourselves the difference between what I was talking about as a sincere desire to serve. We can identify that, and all the other kind of motives we may see floating around in the universe of our subtle body. And if we're aware of the fact that there is a sincere desire in there somewhere, we can get in touch with that. Despite the fact that other kinds of motivations may be circling around, we'll be able to see that there's a difference between them. Anyadevahor sambhavad, anyadahor asambhavat. Iti shushrumadhiranam yenas tadvit shakshare. Because the great sages, Krishna himself, have explained the difference between these two things. And when a devotee comes to distinguish within him or herself that there's these two motives. One of them is to serve Krishna, and you've seen it. You've seen it for yourself. It's like, I want to serve Krishna. I like devotees. Then there's that other side, asambhavat, that I don't want to serve Krishna. I want to look at something else that's not Krishna. But if you have heard from the great souls and you can make a distinction, this is good and that's bad. One's a sambhavat, and that thinking of Krishna is good, even if you're overwhelmed sometimes by the asambhavat, or the impetus to serve, as Krishna Prabhupada writes elsewhere, mammon, the material world, and the flesh and so forth. If you know that other part is there, you go on feeding it, and it'll sprout, it'll become whole. As Krishna takes even the smallest fragment. It's like in a good way, like with cancer, the metastasizes. If one cell gets loose somewhere in the body, it's localized, but then it floats in your bloodstream, it lands somewhere else. then because of its aggressive nature, it could start taking over your kneecap and your lungs and who knows what else. Just as a disclaimer, I'm not an oncologist, but I do have heard about that. So that little tiny sincere desire of bhakti is so powerful. It's like nobody can kill it because it's our eternal spirit. So become aware of that. And when you see other kinds of desires that may be there, make it an intellectual distinction and say, oh yes, those are there, but those are something else. They're asambhavat. They're something that don't actually pertain to my real self and my ultimate self-interest. And then our real refuge is, even though we may feel unqualified to get rid of them, because we may feel overwhelmed, but there's so many of them, they're so much bigger than that one tiny little seed of desire to serve Krishna. But then what to do? Ask Krishna for help. Because he's the friend who will come to your house and say, you want some help clean it up? And then he says, sure. And he comes in, you know that kind of friend? He or she will do anything for you, and like, I'll help you do it. It's like, why? It's like, because I love you. He'll do anything for you. Krishna's like that. So the Bhāgavatam says, Shunvatam swakata Krishna, punya shravana kirtana. If you don't know what else to do and you feel helpless against the onslaught of all the ill motivations that are still in the universe of your heart, then go to Krishna and just sit down and listen to topics of him. And that is non-different from Krishna. And that process is like opening the door to your friend and saying, yeah, I do need some help. Please come in. At least leave the door unlocked. People who are, what are they, there's another word for pack rat. Hoarders. I've been to the house of hoarders before. They can't give up anything. There's like 5, 6 old computers that are broken. Even if they could fix them, they wouldn't run any software. And then you've got the samples they collected, like 500 samples, and like, maybe I'll use them someday, some lifetime. I mean, boxes, and you can't even move in the house. And again, I quote Satyadev, he said, sometimes people have died in their own houses because they hoarded so much, it collapsed and they couldn't get out. And they actually died inside there. So even if we have that in our heart, if you just bring it to Krishna, go to the Bhāgavatam class, Nashta prayeshu bhadreshu, nityam bhagavata sevaya. You keep serving the Bhagavat by listening to topics of Krishna, somehow or other respond to that sincere desire tree and keep showing up, Krishna says. The rest of the verse, jāta-śraddho, mat-kathāsu, nirviṇṇaḥ, sarva-karmasu, veda duḥkhātmakān kāmān parityāge anīśvaraḥ, which means that I know all these desires are junk, but I can't give them up. That's what it says. And then Krishna says, don't worry, if you keep showing up, I'll clean it up for you. So give him that opportunity. Come and listen to the Bhāgavatam class. Listen to your rounds and pray to Krishna. Doors open. I'm too weak to clean it out myself. You're my best friend. Please, you have permission to come in and get rid of all this junk. And then Krishna will help us. If he helped Pūtanā, if he helped Pauṇḍraka, he'll help us. So that's why sarva-karma, sarva-karma. That's why Shukadeva said, doesn't matter how you show up. Main thing, show up. And then tīvreṇa bhakti yogena means try to do something steady. Tīvreṇa means like when you take what is it called? Magnifying glass. If you hold it steady over a piece of grass or paper, steady, don't move it, tīvreṇa, then it concentrates because it's convex and it takes the sun and it focuses it in one place, and then fire starts because it's so hot. So tīvreṇa bhakti means in the beginning, if you say, oh, I don't have that kind of bhakti, just hold it steady. Don't move the magnifying glass. You may say, I can't do it. by myself, but just do what you can by holding that part steady, tivriṇṇaḥ bhakti yogena, and concentrate the ray, the fire will start. There's no question about it. We have time for one more. Not really, but we'll take it anyway. Let's see. Anyone online? You want to raise your hand, or one last point or question? Yes. Did you raise your hand?
Yeah.
You more like you've raised your finger. Yeah.
We may be so attached to certain ways of thinking or desires materially that we can't properly apply ourselves to the process of uprooting those desires because we're so attached. So how can one find that sincerity to want to...
Can you give an example of what you could, because of that desire, you would not you said not properly apply the process of bhakti?
It's almost like we're so convinced that those desires, we need to act on those desires, that the desire to uproot them isn't truly rooted.
Right, I got that. So now Krishna says, he answers that in the Gita, the last verse of the 3rd chapter. He says, use your intelligence. I've given it to you as a tool. Before you have full realization, utilize your intelligence. So he says, evam buddhi param buddva samstapyatmanam jahi shatram ha baho kamarupa tarasado. You can slay those errant, abominable desires that are holding you back through the power of your intelligence. But it has to be, your intelligence has to be empowered by the Bhagavad Gita. So the secret to making advancement past that stage where you're overcome with those lower desires and the desire to do it wrong and do the wrong thing is to read Bhagavad Gita. If you read Bhagavad Gita, then your intelligence becomes surcharged with God's intelligence. The Bhagavad Gita is God's intelligence. And you can overwrite your intelligence, just like you overwrite a computer code. You can overwrite it with a better code, and the other one just falls apart. And then you've got the new code there. So Bhagavad Gita is the answer. Read it regularly, because once that's coded in your intelligence, then your intelligence will be God-empowered, empowered with Krishna's intelligence. And then you'll start noticing that even though there's all those things, you'll be able to use your intelligence as a weapon and say ///. You develop what's called vivek. Kapila Dev talks about this too, vivek. You get this power of discrimination, and anyarevahur sambhavat, anyarahur sambhavat. You say, this one's good, that one's bad, therefore I don't touch it. Even though it's there, I won't touch it. In the meantime, Krishna's cleaning your house for you. So fortify your intelligence and go on hearing about Krishna. You'll be victorious, no doubt about it. Someone else had their hand back. Yes.
Please pass the mic.
Hi Krishna Maharaj. I was just thinking that you mentioned about Vena, he didn't get mercy. So is Vena atheist or Mayavadi? Can you clarify?
Yeah. Atheist is a contradiction in terms. Because if you claim there's no God, that means you think you're God. Because it means that you're omniscient to be able to say there's no God. So it doesn't even make sense. Plus I saw atheist, a-theist. If you just move it by half a space, a-theist or atheist. Which one is it? We're so close because we're tatastha. He's used as an example because he was one who didn't have the benefit of even rejecting Krishna or hating Krishna the way Kamsa did. And it's just to prove the point by contrast that somebody who doesn't even think about Krishna to reject him or say he's bad, then he didn't get the same kind of benefit that everybody else did. He's famous anyway in the Bhāgavatam. Who knows? That might do something. But he gives that as contrast. Because the main point is, Krishna and all his energies are responding to us exactly and perfectly. And it's giving us permission, so don't worry what position you're in, just somehow or other, even if imperfectly, try to think of Krishna and try to serve Krishna. And don't worry what the quality is at first. Krishna will help to improve it as you keep going. I can tell it's really time to stop. Right?
We have 7 minutes.
Really? That's a big deal. Yes, Prabhu.
Just as you were speaking. Just as you were speaking about atheists just now, I was just thinking, when we're on the street and we meet people and give them books and they say, I'm an atheist, it's actually giving them an opportunity to remember Krishna. You know, I always
Yeah.
make a little joke and I said, you need to find out about enemy if you want to defeat him. Some of them laugh, some of them are being serious, but I just appreciate what you just say.
It isn't. And we can see also when we go out and interact with people, the various kinds of conceptions they have adopted. And when we're fortified with Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam and our own realizations, then we feel compassion because we go like, oh, that old thing, that's been disposed of millenniums ago, and you're still holding. I feel bad for you, and we're presenting such powerful medicine that if people accidentally touch it, they accidentally say Hare Krishna. Like we've had 2 cases so far since I've been here, where I said, "Do you believe in the power of prayer?" Yes. I can say this prayer, or the other one said, "No, not so much." And I said, "Okay, we'll give you a mantra." But in 2 cases we've had, the person said, "No, I'm not going to chant it." And then we started chanting it, and they started chanting it too, right?
Yeah, we saw that in
like,
Wales.
oops. So that, the Shastra is talking about they're playing with fire. And we get to observe how even people who are hesitant, the power of the Sankirtan movement is that Yarabaso pyudyan kavalita bhavatwanta vibhavo drisham tatpandanam api dishiti bhakti pranayinim. Rupa Goswami says, my Lord, your holy name is so merciful, so powerful, that even if somebody inadvertently hears it or says it, that abhasa, that dim reflection of the holy name, instills in people a sense of devotion to you. Their bhakti starts to wake up. It's like, Hare Krishna? Why did you say Hare Krishna? It's like, I don't know, I heard it on the street. And then it won't leave them alone. Krishna follows them around. They go home, it's like, you talk to a Hare Krishna? And like everyone's saying, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's in the Bhāgavatam too, because when the Nawab sent his cops to break up the Sankirtan party, they came so Hare 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 Hare, joking among themselves, hey, Hare Hare Hare. And the Nawab's going like, why are you guys chanting Hare Hare? That's the Hindu thing. It's like, I don't know, but we can't stop doing it. And when Gadadhar Das ran in, he was a very enthusiastic Sankirtan devotee. He said, I'm going to get the emperor, and he ran into the palace, and he said, come out here right now. And they're all ready all the guards are ready to kill him, and the Nawab, what's going on down there? And he came out, and Gadadhar Das, a simple, pure devotee, he said, you should chant Hare Krishna. And then the Nawab said, he had some sense as an innocent person. He said, I'll chant Hare Krishna next time. You come back next time. He said, I don't have to. You just did it. And he ran out the door. So Krishna's devotees are full aware of the potency of distributing it. It's like dealing with explosive material. It's like, no, go ahead. Just take a look, like, no, I don't want it. You're like, that's too late. 1 minute left. Yes?
I wonder, is there a message behind the fact that King Vena was so basically not connected in some, I'm not really feeling any interest in Krishna, And then from churning his body, some wonderful personalities came. I mean, it is how this is going together.
Yeah, make the best use of a bad bargain. The main thing that's given by Shukadeva is the contrast between Vena and others, and it is a surprising contrast, and it sort of indicates that in any way that you're able to think of Krishna, yena tena prakarina mana Krishna niveshayat, yam krodha kama sahaja pranayadi biti vatsalya moha guru gaurava sevyavaya, santintitasya sadrisham. He said that in any way, a kama, you have lusty desires, krodha, you're angry at Krishna, sahaja, you have natural friendly love towards Krishna. Any of the ways that you're able to think of him, it's going to be powerful. And Vena didn't think of that. As far as churning from his body, it's just that where there's a will, there's a way. There's always some way to bring out something Krishna from any situation, because he's all pervading. And it's the will of the Brahmanas, and Krishna always has a way to manifest himself in the world. That's indicated in that section. So, hearing Bhāgavatam every day, that's nice to have a systematic approach to go through the Bhāgavatam from beginning to end, and just read some pages every day. If you can sit with devotees in here, that's first class. If you can sit by yourself in here, that's also first class. Main thing is to go on hearing Bhāgavatam, and the power of the transcendental sound vibration will invoke Krishna's presence. It's non-different from Krishna, and he'll help to cleanse the heart. And our desire will become wholesome, that I only want to serve Krishna. Then we're on the safe side of life. And it's not very far away because of the power of Krishna consciousness. Om Tat Sat for real. Thank you very much, everyone who joined online. Thank you, everyone who sacrificed their whole morning and left behind things cooking on the stove and kids crying in the back room just to come here and hear Bhāgavatam. We're deeply grateful. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Shri Panchatattva, Shri Shri Radha Gokulananda, Shri Radha Anīśvaraḥ. If you so desire, please empower us that we'll always be eager to hear the Srimad Bhāgavatam in the association of devotees. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Vanchakalpataruscha kripasinaveva cha patitana pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnavinihi Jai Gaur Premanande.